Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write and podcast for In Session Film. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast, a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
My name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of Your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast.
Yes, you are, sir.
Yes. And Dave is on vacation this week, so we hope he's having a good time. We miss you, Dave, but we hope you're having fun.
Yes, miss you. But we're holding things down here, and we're going to talk about some movies as always. But before we jump into this week's episode, we want to tell you about our bonus episode over on Patreon. This week, we talked about the 2014 neo-noir thriller Nightcrawler, starring Jake Gyllenhaal and directed by Dan Gilroy. And it's a great film, and we had such a good time talking about it. So if so if you're a patron, go check it out. And if you're not one, consider joining for $5 a month. So let's talk about this week's movies. We have 3 we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about the John Candy documentary, John Candy, If I Like Me, or I Like Me, not If I Like Me. I'm changing names of things. We're also going to be talking about the film If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. And we're going to be talking about The Lost Bus. So we're going to start things with If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which I saw, which is written and directed by Mary Bronstein, and it stars Rose Byrne. It also co-stars Conan O'Brien, Christian Slater, A$AP Rocky, and Danielle McDonald. And let me give you
what a cast.
Yeah, it's a great cast. It's an eclectic cast.
Yes.
But let me give you the synopsis. With her life crashing down around her, Linda attempts to navigate her child's mysterious illness, her absent husband, a missing person, and an increasingly hostile relationship with her therapist.
Whoa, that's a lot for one woman to deal with.
Yeah, so this premiered earlier this year at Sundance. It's a psychological comedy drama. I would say more probably it is very funny, but I would say it's more drama with some really sharp comedic elements. This movie I loved it. It is something else. It starts, and from the opening frame, which is extremely tight on Linda, played by Rose Byrne, on her face. And she's getting more and more exasperated as she's talking with this nurse, this therapist who runs this program that her daughter, who has this illness where she has a feeding tube in her stomach because she needs to gain weight. She needs to be getting nutrients, and she's not eating, and we don't really know why. Right from the opening scene, she is exasperated. She is pissed. She is frustrated, and you feel it so viscerally. You see it. And I had a pit in my stomach almost the entire time watching this movie. It's very anxiety inducing. It's very intense. It is utterly riveting. I love this. So we are following Rose Byrne as she just cannot catch a break. Everything keeps going wrong for her. Her daughter you never see her daughter. Well, I take that back. You see her at the very end of the film, and it's very, very important reason why.
Okay.
But you don't see her daughter, but you hear her daughter's voice, and her daughter's constantly like, Mommy, we have to do this. Mommy, I'm scared. Mommy, can we do this? It's kind of like the kid from the Babadook, like how the kid from the Babadook.
I was just thinking that.
Yes, is so like the most annoying character. And this daughter is kind of like that. I'm sure she's a lovely child, but it's more just so that you feel Linda's like, she just can't catch a break. She just does not get reprieve at all. And her husband, and you hear Christian Slater's voice on the phone because her husband is away, and you're not at first sure why he's away, and later you learn it's for his job. And so he's away for like 8 weeks because he's
Mhm.
in the military, and which they don't talk about, but you see his uniform like later.
Okay.
But anyway, so you hear him, and she's very frazzled, and because she's all alone and she's dealing with her daughter's illness, and he's away and can't really do much, but they're just constantly bickering about things going on, and one of which is the daughter's feeding tube. So Linda wants it out. She wants it done because she thinks that the feeding tube being in is like a failing of her daughter and a failure of her as a mother. And the nurse is like, no, we need to get her better before it comes out. And so there's a lot of tension around that. There's battle around that. Then there's a problem in the house. The house they live in, or rather the apartment they live in Montauk, and the apartment ceiling collapses, and there's an enormous hole because there's some kind of leak, and water's just like pouring in. So then they have to flee to a motel, and there's problems with that. And then there's problems with the contractor, and she's dealing with that on the phone. And then she kind of forms this weird friendship with her motel neighbor, played by A$AP Rocky. By the way, it's the year of A$AP Rocky. He's great in Highest to Lowest, and he's excellent here.
Good for him.
Yeah, great performance. And then you also find out, like, she's always, you find this out earlier, but she's always so like frazzled and disheveled looking, and she is having like a breakdown with her therapist, played by Conan O'Brien, who is very not comedic, but like he is funny in his very straight-laced buttoned upness here. And yeah, so he's her therapist, but then you also find out, oh, she's a therapist. And so she's like, kind of that thing where, you can be a therapist, but your life is also falling apart. And so
she can also be a mess.
Right, exactly. So she has a patient, played by Danielle McDonald, who is a very, very nervous new mother and brings her baby everywhere and won't leave her baby with anyone because she's like, I must protect my baby. If I don't protect my baby, didn't you see that story about the 2 kids who were stabbed by the nanny? Like that kind of stuff. Like she's just so frazzled. And then she's so frazzled, and she's like, I have to go to the bathroom. And Linda's like, well, we only have like 10 minutes left. Can you just wait? No, I can't. And then she leaves, and she leaves her baby. Her baby's there, and she leaves her baby with Linda, and Linda's trying to get in touch with this woman's husband, and he's a jerk. And like, so it's just,
oh my God.
It's like one thing on top of another, on top of another, on top of another. And Linda, in the midst of this, she clearly has a drug and alcohol problem because it needs some kind of reprieve and release, and she's turning to drugs and alcohol for that, which is adding to problems.
It would drive me to drink too, all this stuff.
Yeah, it is. This movie is so intense. I have to say, I've always been a Rose Byrne fan, and I know we were talking about this before the show, that Rose Byrne is really underrated, and she is. And she's a great dramatic actor. I have loved her ever since Damages. I think she was phenomenal on that show with Glenn Close. I've loved her in comedies. She's great in Neighbors and Neighbors 2. Actually, I didn't see Neighbors, but Neighbors 2 I love. And she's great in other comedies too. And she is a force of nature here. This is one of the best performances I've seen this year. She is excellent. She truly encapsulates this woman who is just at her wit's end, where she feels like she doesn't know what to do. She is screaming for help. She feels like no one will help her. She has no resources. She is on her own handling this illness with her child, and working and dealing with the house and trying to keep her own sanity and keep herself, functioning and not even happy. Like she's not even at that point yet. She's just trying to function. And she feels like she's drowning, and it's incredibly powerful. And it's such a fascinating exploration of the struggles of motherhood, of struggles with mental health, and it goes to some really dark places. There is a scene which is I think it's incredible. But it's this scene where she's talking about an abortion that she had, because she's telling her therapist, I shouldn't be here. This is not my life. I'm not meant to be a mother. And you kind of get that hint that she's like, not like, I don't want to be like, not like other moms, but like we don't really know much about her life before getting married and having a child, but like you get glimpses of tattoos that she has, and she kind of like, she has like a grown out undercut like under her hair. So you kind of get the sense that maybe she was kind of alternative in some way in her life, kind of punk. But you never really know. And I like that. I like that the movie hints at things rather than explicitly telling you everything. But then she says something horrifying that I'm still reeling from, still thinking about. And she says, what if I aborted the wrong child? And I'm like, oh my God. Like, yeah, but this is the kind of shit. Like, this movie goes to dark places. Like, she says the things out loud that you're not supposed to say, let alone think. And like, it's just, and then she's like so filled with shame that she said that. And like, she keeps running away from her child. Like, has like, a baby monitor, because her daughter is like hooked up to breathing apparatus, and she carries that around with her, and she'll go to the beach because the motel is right on the water, and she'll go to the beach, and like, then she walks to her old house, and like, she feels like tremendous shame that she left her daughter alone. And she's like, I know I shouldn't leave her alone, but then she does. And like, so and then there's like these there's weird mystical elements happening, like as if her mind is unraveling, and like, because she keeps seeing holes opening and closing are like a motif in this. So anyway, there's a lot happening in this film.
It sounds like it.
I think this film is incredible. I was utterly captivated. It's riveting and excellent work. I think it's really well directed, well written, incredibly acted. I loved this. It was great. So visceral. Nice. Fantastic. And disturbing, but in the best possible way.
Like it.
Yeah.
Oh boy. What a description of this movie.
I know. I'm like, it's wild. It is wild. Like how uncomfortable and awkward at times this movie is, but like, yeah. It's funny because I never feel like it's demonizing Linda. Like you're watching her do these things, kind of like a car crash. Like, oh my God, don't do that. What are you doing? Don't do that. But then you also like understand, because she's so overwhelmed and she just never has a moment to herself. Like, she can't sleep through the night because she's constantly hearing the breathing of her daughter, and she's constantly having to check the feeding bag and change the feeding bag in the middle of the night to make sure she's getting nutrients. And anyway, this movie's incredible.
Yeah. And how does it all come to a head? It's like what?
So the woman missing comes back, and Linda chases after her, and then you don't know what happens to her patient. And then everything kind of comes down. So Linda decides, there's a scene where she finds out the feeding tube will just be taken out by the doctor. She thinks it's going to be like a surgical procedure, but the nurse says, no, they just pull it out. And so once you hear that, you know she's going to pull it out herself. So that's what she does. She pulls out the feeding tube, and you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't do it. And she does it. Yeah. And then she goes back she leaves her daughter. She goes back to her old house. Her husband has come home. He's there. The ceiling is getting fixed. And he's like, let's go see our daughter, because he thinks she's with a babysitter, but she just left her. And then A$AP Rocky is sitting there. Because the two of them have been like trying to get drugs together, and then he's there because he heard her daughter like screaming because she woke up alone, and he like basically like blows up that cover because she's like, oh, it's the babysitter, and that's what Christian Slater thinks too, like, oh, it's the babysitter. He's like, I'm not the babysitter, and so then it's all crashing down on her. So she runs away and runs into the ocean to try to kill herself and swim away, but she can't because the tide is coming in too strong, and then she just gives up kind of on the beach, and then her daughter's there, and you finally see her daughter's face, and her daughter's like comforting her, and that's how it ends.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's nowhere to go but up from here.
Let's hope so. But I did think, I was like, I'm not entirely sure that ending actually happened, but I'd like to think on a hopeful level that it did. So.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Woof.
Yeah. Yeah. It's intense.
Cool.
All right.
Anything else to add, or should we move on
to
John Candy?
I was like, I've spoiled the shit out of that. And there's like so much more to talk about because there's so much, but no, let's talk about the John Candy doc. I have the synopsis for that. So let me give you some information before. I didn't get to see this, but Evan, you did. Mm-hmm. And this is directed by Colin Hanks. And this is the synopsis from the press release. It says, from director Colin Hanks and producer Ryan Reynolds, both lifelong John Candy fans, comes John Candy, I Like Me, an exploration of the life and legacy of the comedic icon. The film showcases his remarkable career from his breakout turn on SCTV in his beloved native Canada to starring in some of the biggest comedies of all time. But it also delves deeply into his life off camera through never-before-seen home videos and the personal recollections of those who knew him best.
Yeah.
All right, Evan, take it away. Tell us all about it.
That sounds like an accurate description. Yeah, it's a documentary about John Candy, about his life, as the synopsis mentioned, by the people who knew him best. So both colleagues in comedy, people like, Catherine O'Hara, and so many comedians like Martin Short and Eugene Levy, and just so many people who worked with him over the years, but also his wife and his two children. It's a great cast of talking heads intermixed with home video footage, clips from his films. It's a very loving tribute to John Candy. It's very clear like the people Colin Hanks really loved John Candy, Ryan Reynolds, people who worked on it clearly have an affinity for him. And of course, Tom Hanks does appear in this as well because he worked with John Candy multiple times, I think. Or at least he worked with him on Splash. I can't remember if he worked with him on other stuff. But he has nothing but glowing things to say. It's really funny because the opening interview of the film, like the first thing you see is actually Bill Murray, and he's talking about, I don't have anything bad to say about John Candy. He basically says like, he says, I wish I had more bad things to say about him. Oh. That's like the opening of the documentary. It's like him saying, I wish I had more bad things to say about him. And he's like, actually, I did think of one bad thing. And then they like cut away and they'll come back to that for a while. But it's really funny because when they do, it's like, it's not really that bad of a thing. He's like, we worked on this project where Sidney Pollack was the director and John Candy was just totally milking this one scene for like all it was worth. And he's like, if that's the worst thing I could say about somebody, like that's got to be pretty good.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. They talk about his his getting his start, his breakout on SCTV, his work in films. I mean, I would say I was predisposed to like this as a huge fan of John Candy. I mean, in my house growing up, we watched Planes, Trains, and Automobiles every year for Thanksgiving as per tradition, which the title of this documentary comes from, the monologue where he says, I like me, my customers like me, people like me. And so, yeah, I would say I was predisposed to like this because I really, really like John Candy. But I think this is a really heartfelt and well done tribute to him.
Nice.
And I really think my only real criticism is that it feels a little bit too long, in that I think that they could have probably slimmed or trimmed down some of the film clips that they show in the movie. Like they show a bunch of different clips from like movies and TV sketches from SCTV and things. And I feel like they could have probably trimmed those down. But I love the interviews with people, especially with his family, like seeing his kids. And I had no idea what a tragic upbringing he had. So he lost his father when he was 5 years old. His father died of a heart attack on his birthday.
Oh, God.
It was his 5th birthday. His father died of a heart attack on his birthday. And so he spent like his whole life basically like worrying about dying of a heart attack and like worrying that like he was gonna, you know, be gone too soon like his dad. And it also didn't help that like later on his brother had a heart attack at a young age. Like his brother survived, but it's like the specter of that like hung over him for his entire life. And they talk about that trauma and how that impacted him and how that kind of mixed with, you know, becoming so famous, people really focusing a lot on his weight, and that being, you know, an uncomfortable thing led to kind of like a mix of like anxiety and self-medication through like drinking and I think drinking. I don't really think he was really doing drugs, but being caught in kind of a vicious cycle. And so I didn't know that toward the end of his life, he was basically just like he was just all nerves and anxiety and was having panic attacks because he'd become so famous, and he was just like, he couldn't like keep up with how much like pressure that was on him and everything that he had going on. And that made me really sad.
Yeah.
To think that that's kind of like how things were going for him. And it was just, it was tragic. Like I remember being really sad, even though I was not that old at the time when he died, but like I knew him and I knew had seen him in things and thought he was really great and very funny. And so that was sad. But I think the interviews with his family are very insightful, like both of his children and, you know, what they got to know of him, and also the kind of like continued trauma. Like his son was also young when he died. And so he had to basically like go through the same thing of like, you know, I've spent so much of my life never having had my father. And like, so the film delves into like trauma and dealing with that and like going through therapy. Like his son was talking about like toward the end, his dad was in therapy to try and deal with all of his issues. And it's kind of seemed like it was too little too late, but he was trying to deal with them. And he talks about like being inspired by his dad. And he's like, and I'm in therapy. I've gone to therapy and it's been really helpful to me. And so I think that messaging is really helpful to be here in the documentary. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Like, yeah, there's just really funny interviews. I mean, I knew that he was close with John Hughes because he worked in many projects with John Hughes, but I didn't realize how close they were off screen. Like they described them as being like brothers and spending so much time together off screen with their families. And I think one of the more interesting interviews is with Macaulay Culkin in the documentary. And he talks about working with him on Uncle Buck and talking about feeling like John Candy was very much like a father figure to him. And they talked about how like they felt like he on screen created like the father that he wished that he had, and how he was like that to so many other co-stars and like a fatherly figure. But like, and I know this has been in a bunch of interviews, but Macaulay Culkin was talking about like how John Candy saw pretty early on that Macaulay Culkin's father was a monster, and he seemed to be like trying to keep an eye on him or trying to look out for him at a time, whether people were just like not paying attention. And so that was interesting. And he also was like, you know, people think of like Molly Ringwald, you know, when they think of John Hughes. And he's like, you know, she was in like 3 movies. He's like, I was in like 3 of John Hughes movies. John Candy was in 9 of them. They should be thinking about John Candy when they think about John Hughes, not me, not Molly Ringwald. And so I thought that was very funny. But
that's a good point.
It was like, and he also brought it around to the fact that, you know, he's like, I'm 43 now. Like I'm now 7 years older than John Candy was when he worked on Uncle Buck. And like, isn't that fucking tragic that like he's not here with us anymore? And just, so I don't know, that was a really great interview. Tom Hanks had a lot of really glowing things to say about John Candy. And like, he was talking about how he was like, he caught some SCTV sketch where it was like a Leave It to Beaver thing that he thought was so funny, and then he was like so excited when he finally got to meet and work with John Candy, and I thought that was really sweet. Conan O'Brien is also in this. He talks about when he invited John Candy to come to Harvard to be honored by the Lampoon. And that was a really sweet story because John Candy like came with his camera and was taking photos, and so he snapped photos of a college Conan O'Brien like and was there like hanging out with him. And so there's a lot of really nice stories. Like people, they don't really have negative things to say about him. But I there's one guy I feel like, and I don't remember his name, but he worked with John Candy on the Toronto Second City after they like established that, and he seemed like he didn't really like John Candy very much. I feel like he had some kind of like, I don't know, negative things to say about him, but not in a, I don't know. I didn't feel like it was a constructive. I feel like he was just kind of like kicking a guy while he was down.
Oh, just like petty.
Yeah, it felt like some of the stuff that he was saying felt kind of petty, but yeah, it seemed like he was a really sweet, wonderful guy to people that he worked with, like very generous of spirit and also like financially generous. Like even they were talking about like when he died, he was working on that movie and he just gave a bunch of money to the local like children's hospital and didn't tell anybody. Like,
oh, nice.
So yeah, this movie or this documentary, like it definitely made me very emotional in places. Like, oh man, I loved him. He was so great. And it's so nice to hear that he was like a decent human being, but also really tragic and sad that we lost him and that he was going through all this like internal strife that like other people just had no like window into or no clue that he was going through this. Because like even some of the people in the film are like, oh yeah, like maybe if he did therapy, and then like other people are like, yeah, he was doing it. He was doing the work. He was like trying to do things to like deal with his like issues that he was having. Like he did goad and like he quit smoking because they talked about that of like smoking cigarettes being a big problem for him for a long time.
Yes, yeah, it was.
Yeah. I loved the interview with Steve Martin talking about planes, trains, and automobiles, and he was just saying about like he's like all I had to do. He's like my job was easy. All I had to do was be annoyed, and John Candy was brilliant at playing like annoying. Like he was so great. Like he knew exactly how to play annoying, and he just like nailed it. So they were talking also about his cameo in Home Alone and how funny that was, and how I think they were like, can you come and like we'll take anything that you can give us, like any amount of time. And he gave them like a full day and was just spent the whole day like improvising and like giving them material to work with. And Catherine O'Hara was just talking about how much fun that was. Like I knew she worked with him, but I guess I didn't realize like how close they were too. Like she spoke at his funeral and they showed that she was one of the people. And Dan Aykroyd, I remembered him being close, but also I didn't realize like how close they were too and how long they had been friends and worked together. So yeah, I think it's a really well done documentary. I think if you like John Candy, you will feel the love in the way that I did while watching this. It made me want to watch some of his other movies that I hadn't seen. Like I've never seen Splash. I'm like, okay.
Oh my God, are you serious?
That. Yeah.
Oh, that's my favorite John Candy performance.
Yeah.
Splash. I love Splash. It's absurd. It's great. It's wonderful. But it's my absolute favorite John Candy performance. He's so fun. I mean, he's really funny. He's so funny in that. One of the funniest scenes for me that I've seen in a film is in that movie, and it's a scene that he does, and it's great. It's so great. There's this moment. It's so silly. There's this moment where the character, without getting into the whole explanation, there's like a whole media circus, a whole media frenzy, and John Candy is with Tom Hanks, and he's like, wait a minute. And he's like a perv. Like he's constantly like looking at porn. And he's like, wait a minute, is anybody here from Playboy? And they're all like, no. He's like, then we ain't talking. And he like runs away. And it's so good. It's just so silly. It's so good. Yeah, he's great in it. You have to see it.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely on my list. So
yeah,
maybe I'll watch that this week.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, I mean, he's excellent. Like, I was just going through his filmography, and I'm like, yeah, I've seen it. Like, so many of his films. Like, And
Same.
he's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I love him in Uncle Buck. I love him in Home Alone.
Yeah.
I love I love Summer Rental, Great Outdoors. Like he's great in that. Like
I didn't realize that Uncle Buck was written specifically for John Candy. Like John Hughes wrote that movie for him specifically.
Yeah.
I thought that was really sweet.
That is sweet.
They were also they talked about Summer Rental. I think, did Carl Reiner direct that one? Because they were saying like Carl Reiner worked with him on some movie, and he was telling Mel Brooks that he would look forward to just being able to like shoot the shit with John Candy. Like he'd be excited to get to set every day just so he could like hang out with him.
Oh, that's
and that
cute.
Passed on to Mel Brooks, and that's why Mel Brooks was like, let's get him on Spaceballs, and that's how he ended up being in Spaceballs.
Well, that makes sense because the two of them are besties and like still eat like lunch or dinner together every day, which is amazing. Yes, Carl Reiner did direct Summer Rental.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. That was one of my staple John Candy movies, I think, that I saw when I was a kid. Like I've seen Summer Rental and Uncle Buck a lot. Yeah.
Same. Yeah. I know. I've seen Armed and Dangerous. Who's Harry Crumb, which
I've seen that one. That was when they listed there was a segment where they were like, yeah, you've been in some turkeys. And like they were showing there's a lot of like interviews footage with him, and they're like, yeah, you've been in some turkeys. And he's like, I don't know. I guess there was a period where I was like being too generous, where I was like being in things because I wanted to help my friends out. And then
that's sweet.
Yeah. It seemed like he was incredibly generous with like his time and his money and his like love and attention and trying to take care of people. And another thing that resonated with me was when Bill Murray was talking about like you can judge a lot about a person based on like how they treat like waiters and other service people. And he's like,
absolutely.
And, like we were young and dumb and we struggled a lot, in our careers. And like John, like you could clearly never forgot that and was always like aces to like anybody that he like met and like he came across like in any type of like service industry. It was just like treated them like gold. And I was like, yeah, that is the mark, I feel like, of a decent human being.
Absolutely. Because like I won't say anybody can be nice, but anybody can be nice to someone when you're trying to get something from them or somebody, higher up. But like, yeah. But when you're nice to someone in the service industry, it speaks volumes about you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Oh, and one other thing I had no clue about. He co-owned a football team. John Candy he co-bought a Canadian football team, and their like team made it to like the Canadian equivalent of the Super Bowl, which is crazy.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But apparently that was something he was doing like in the early 90s and was also kind of like sucking up a lot of his time and energy. Is like he was just pouring himself into doing that too, and that was, I think, causing a lot of stress and whatnot, because I think his business partner like got in trouble for corruption and like had to sell the team. It was like, it sounded like a lot.
Yeah. Oh, that's awful.
Yep.
Oh.
Anyway, I think that's all I have to say. I think it's a really well done documentary. I'm really glad that I saw it, but I also know I was predisposed to like it.
Nothing wrong with that. Listen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds great. Like sounds captivating. I mean, John Candy was, an incredibly talented, really funny person. But it's nice to hear. I mean, one, it's nice to hear that he was such a lovely person, but it's also nice to hear about how he would do films to help friends out. But also, I like one of the roles I really like him in so much is Only the Lonely. And that's such a different role for him because he was playing like a romantic lead and he was great in it. So it was great that he was kind of stretching himself talent-wise as well as to help friends. And anyway, sounds like he was lovely, and it's incredibly tragic that he's not here.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah, but so glad to hear that the documentary was great. Anything else you want to say before we move on to our last film?
No, that's it.
All right. Let's talk about our third and final film. We're going to be talking about The Lost Bus, the survival disaster film. It's directed by Paul Greengrass. It's written by Brad Inglesby and Paul Greengrass, and it's based on the book Paradise, One Town Struggle to Survive an American Wildfire by Lizzie Johnson. And it stars Matthew McConaughey and America Ferrera. And let me give you the synopsis. Okay. Based on a true story of bravery and hope, The Lost Bus follows a down-on-his-luck school bus driver and a courageous teacher in Northern California who fight against all odds to save 22 children from one of America's deadliest and most destructive wildfires. Yeah, so this is based on the Camp Fire, which is absolutely that, one of the deadliest fires, and it ravaged California. The incredible documentary, Dave and I have talked about this documentary before. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show, but I know we've talked about it off mic. Bring Your Own Brigade chronicles the Camp Fire as well as the growing epidemic of increasing wildfires, and it's a phenomenal documentary. It's one that haunts me. I still think about it quite often. And so this is about that, but and it does touch on like the fire chief and some of the bigger elements, but really it hones in on this one school bus.
Right.
And we have Matthew McConaughey's character, who is it Luke McKay? Kevin McKay?
Kevin. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. And we have Mary, the school teacher, played by America Ferrera. And Kevin he's a bus driver who has moved back home to his town of Paradise, and he doesn't want to be there. He moved because his father had very abruptly gotten sick and then died. And his mother, it's very clear there's some issues going on with her, right. Some memory issues perhaps, or some health issues as well. And his son is there, his teenage son, who's 14. And he doesn't want to be there. He wants to be with his mom. Right. And so Kevin just can't catch a break. Very similar to Linda. And if I
was just thinking that. I was just thinking based on your description of that, here is someone else who just can't fucking catch a break. Right? It's so many things are going wrong for him, so early in the movie. It's he has a shouting match with his son. His son is home sick. His mom is not equipped to take care of his son. He's trying to go to the pharmacy to get medicine for his son who's sick at home, but he's also being called in to get service for his bus, and he's late for that. And I forget what else is going on, but it's in any given scene, his ex-wife is chewing him out on the phone while he's trying to get the medicine after he's gotten the medicine. And he's trying to get to the bus depot to get the service, but also the wildfire is spreading and clearly becoming a problem. It's he's got all kinds of shit going on. And in any given scene, you're oh my God, this fucking guy. He's anything else goes wrong, he's broke. He has no money. He can't afford anything. He desperately needs this job. He desperately needs more hours, but he can't get them.
Exactly. Yeah, it's piling up one thing after another. Yeah, so that's where we are with him. And then on top of all of that, there are no other buses that can evacuate these kids from this school. And he's come on, hoping somebody else will step up, and no one else is in the area or their buses are full. So he's trying to get back to his son to get him this medicine because his son is sick. And then he's all right, I can do it. And so he goes to pick up these 22 kids from this school to evacuate them. And then Mary, the school teacher, joins him. She wasn't going to, but he was no, you need to be here because I can't stay with these kids. I have to get home to my family. And so she comes too. And then the most of the movie is them navigating this bonkers terrain of wildfires and raging insanity of the fire, and downed trees and down
looters apparently at one point.
Looters at one point, and
I was who running the fuck is looting right now?
Running out of water, the bus getting hotter and hotter, and they need to block the vents and turn off the AC because the smoke's getting in. So it's just constantly it's escalating after another, as things do in a disaster survival situation.
Yep.
But luckily they make it through. Yay! And get the kids to their parents who don't know where the bus is, because that's the other thing. The radio system has gone out, so he and Mary don't know that the school they're taking them to for pickup, they can't bring them there because the fire's there, so they have to leave. And so they finally get the kids reunited, and Mary's reunited with her son and her husband, and then Kevin is frantically looking for his mother and his son, and he finally finds his mother, and his son is with the mother of his son is with his mother, and so
Yeah.
he's okay too. So everything ends up okay, but it is quite the journey to get there.
Hmm.
So Evan, what did you think?
I was locked into this movie. It's intense. It's an intense disaster movie. It's funny because like I didn't realize this was Paul Greengrass. Like I didn't like look up who directed it, so I was just sitting there watching it, and then as I was watching, I was like, this is really reminiscent of like Paul Greengrass, as well as like shaky cam and cutting.
Yep.
And then the movie ended. I was like, aha, okay, I see. But also, I think that's what added to some of its intensity is that his like shaky cam, quick cutting, very chaotic framing, and just kind of overall storytelling was engaging me in that way. In this, it just feels like there's so much going on in any given scene. There's so much chaos from the fire. I think the film really effectively conveys the like chaos element of fire and wildfires, and how quickly it spreads throughout this movie, and how like you have the fire chief who's like played by Yoel Vasquez, who is constantly underestimating the fire, and they're like, yeah, dude, it is getting out of control. Like you need to like stop underestimating this fire. And I think there's a really interesting kind of like push and pull throughout the movie of this theme of like going by the rules or throwing the rules out the window, with the like idea that like if we play by the rules, if we follow all of the usual protocols, like people are just going to die, and we need to like think outside the box. And that's happening like with the firefighters. It's happening with on the bus, where initially Kevin's like, okay, like I'll follow this evacuation route that I'm supposed to go on, but I think it's stupid. And then like there's a traffic jam, and then he's like, I'm gonna go this way, and Mary's like, no, don't do that, it's stupid. And then they like almost get into an accident, but then they like start making forward progress. And so I just think that's an interesting theme that's kind of like throughout the movie, and especially when it gets to the point where the fire chief is told like, look, you can either fight this fire and lose everybody, or just focus on saving lives. And that's what you should probably do. And he does. So he's like, okay, everybody stop fighting the fire. Let's just focus on saving as many people as humanly possible. So yeah, I found this like really compelling. I thought it was like really intense, like fast paced, harrowing in so many scenes, with all of like the obstacles they've got to navigate, and the fire. And like there's that whole part where they're like parked, and they basically think like, we're surrounded by fire, we have nowhere to go, we'll just have to sit here and hopefully help comes. And they're like, well, I guess we can't do that anymore. Right? And like Matthew McConaughey is like running outside the bus, like trying to put out fires with the bus's fire extinguisher.
Oh my god.
And then he's like, okay, we're just gonna have to drive through the fire. And they have this like really harrowing scene where they're like plowing through these like fiery forest areas, and they come smashing out the other side into like clear skies and stuff like that.
Yeah, but don't forget the kids screaming and crying too in the midst of all this.
Yeah, kids like, I don't want to die. Like there's like literally kids screaming that in this movie. Like, I don't want to die.
I know, I laughed. It's not funny, but I kind of laughed at the on the nose of it.
Yeah, no, I did too. I was like, it's not funny, but also it is kind of funny that they throw that in there, because it's like it's a very chaotic scene where like a lot is happening, but you hear one kid go, I don't want to die, like very clearly. It's like definitely a storytelling choice. Yeah. And linking back around to Megan, we were talking about the person who did the score for this movie, also did the score for Nightcrawler, which we talked about on Patreon. And this I did feel like was an effective score, but it was just so intense. And I feel like it was matching like the intensity of the action of the film. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I'll probably think of more as we get into it. But yeah, I just thought this was a very effective disaster movie that held my attention.
Nice. Yeah, I am a sucker for a good disaster movie. And especially, I didn't realize this was about the campfire at first, but I was like, oh, it's about wildfire, which I find really terrifying, but also really compelling and fascinating. And so I wanted to see this. But then when I was like, oh, it's about campfire and about the ravaging of like in Paradise, California and other towns, and I was even more engaged just because I had read about this and seen the documentary. And it reminded me of the documentary because that documentary begins with footage that is compiled from 911 calls and people's cameras and like their phones, like they're filming, like passengers in cars are filming what's happening with the wildfires as people are driving through the wildfires. And it's just the first 30 minutes of that documentary is just out of control. So a lot of it kind of reminded me of that, just kind of like watching. I am not a fan of Paul Greengrass's style of shaky cam and quick cut editing. I absolutely hate that. Having said that, because I much prefer a long take, having said that, I do think that that style works better here because of the chaos. And I feel that it was slightly more restrained here than in perhaps some other of his
Bourne movies
films. Yes, which drives me up a wall. I will also say about the score, because you were talking about it, and it was really intense. And I liked it. What I also noticed, though, what I thought was interesting is that there are certain scenes where there is no score. And so I think the score is utilized really well to punctuate certain scenes. But you know how sometimes there'll be a scene that's like a quote unquote emotional scene, or like it's supposed to elicit, tenderness from the audience. And so they'll play up a kind of stereotypical score. This doesn't do that. This is much more understated in those kinds of scenes. Like in the scene when they're sitting in the bus and waiting for help, and you have Kevin and Mary talking about kind of like how she's like, I've always played by the rules and I've played it safe, and I thought that would keep me safe, and what a silly way to live my life. That is no way to live your life. I'm going to take more trips. And then you have Kevin talking about his problems and about his father dying and how he had a fight with his father when he was young, and then they never really reconciled. And so you have these two characters who are talking about their problems. And that would have been, I feel like a lesser film would have had really kind of like heavy strings or, kind of like manipulative score. And it doesn't do that. And I just appreciated those kinds of touches. So yeah, there are certain storytelling things in this film, like especially early on, that are just way too on the nose. And I'm like, you don't need to explicitly say that. We got that. Trust your audience.
Yeah.
But having said that, there are some other really great moments that are very understated. And so overall, I think this is a well done film. I found this very engaging. I think I like Matthew McConaughey, but I think he's excellent here. Like, I think he's really great. Yeah. And I think America Ferrera is great too. What I will say though is there's one, actually this happened a couple times, but one really stood out to me.
Sure.
Reese Witherspoon recently did a roundtable actress kind of interview, like one of those like Hollywood Reporter, Vanity Fair type of interviews. Because I remember Jennifer Aniston being there too. And she was talking about how when men write women characters, quite often in a film, when there's a serious scene, the female character will turn to the male character and say, what do we do now? And she's like, have you ever known a woman in your life to turn to a man and say that? And all the women at the table are like, hell no. And Mary does that multiple times in this film. And I'm like,
she does, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, part of it is she's not the one driving the bus. So I'm like, okay, you could make that excuse. But also it would have been nice to see her have been a little more decisive as a character. Because yes, this is based on a true story, but there's still a lot fictionalized here. So, although I will say the scene where he's like ripping up like his shirt and like wetting it, like that was real. I read an interview where the real Kevin was talking about how like that was real. But anyway, so I have some quibbles with like little things here and there, but overall, I think this was really engaging, really well done. I do think it's kind of interesting that there's not really a lot of, and I get why, because I read about this too, that Paul Greengrass didn't want to focus on the PG&E kind of controversy about how they were at fault with their faulty wiring. And it doesn't really talk about climate change. But you do have kind of a nod to that with the fire chief talking about, like, I just have to say one more thing in the press conference. And he's like, you know, the rate we're going, we're being ridiculous. And, you know, this has got to stop. And so you have kind of a nod to it. It could have been a little more pointed in its commentary, but I at least appreciate that there's a nod.
Yeah. I mean, and then also we know that this movie, that it's a disaster movie. It's going to focus on kind of like a core group of people and them falling through the disaster. A couple of things I thought of. So one, I agree about Matthew McConaughey and America Ferrera being really good, and I think they're pretty good together.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I think for me, the least effective moments of the movie were those kind of like quieter moments where they're sitting there talking about their lives, because I feel like they felt kind of like schmaltzy and like forced and like, well, oh, we got to shoehorn in some stuff to make them more human.
That's
like
totally
when she's like,
fair.
I've never left the town but that once, but actually twice, but I've only ever left here twice. And like that's for me was not working, but I agree with you about the understated score in those scenes being more effective than if they had, you know, made it like really like saccharine or like annoying. So that's one thing that I was thinking, oh crap, what was the other? Now I'm forgetting what it was. What were we just saying? So we were talking about their performances. Oh, and I respect a storytelling choice that the movie does not show us what either of their sons are up to or what is happening to them.
Yes, agree.
Yeah, it doesn't waste time on what's going on with them. It only focuses on them and the kids on the bus. And we have no fucking clue what's happening with their sons. And that makes it that much scarier too. When when he sees the mom and you're like, it was like, where's the son? And she's like, oh, he went with his mom. And I was like, did he die?
I know, I thought that too.
Did he die? Because like his mom clearly is not like entirely with it. So I'm like, does she like think that he went with his mom and he didn't?
Right.
And so that was intense. But I was just also kind of like, I feel like the movie went on just a hair too long. Like I didn't need to see him go back and see his like burned remains of his home and then see his son. I didn't need that. I think we could have ended the movie like far sooner. So I think that's another gripe I had, is that the movie just went on for a little bit longer than it needed to.
That's totally fair. That scene weirdly worked for me. And I think it's because they didn't say a word. Like, I think if they had had a conversation, I would have been highly annoyed. But the fact that it was all silent, they just, like, the son just shows up at the house.
Hug,
just a quick hug. I was like, okay, I'm okay with this. But, like, if it had been a moment longer, if they had said anything, I would have been pissed. So. But that, because I was like, why is this movie still going on? And then I was like, okay, we're wrapping up. I'm okay with this. So I was I was okay. It was kind of cliche to show, you know, the burned down house, but I wasn't mad at it.
I liked seeing Matthew McConaughey playing kind of an everyman character. He doesn't really play this kind of character usually. Like he's like, you know, like a dad with like a bunch of shit going on and like chaos in his life. He's like broke. He's late. He's just, I don't know. I thought it was really interesting seeing him play that kind of a character. It's more like blue collar, I feel like, than sometimes I see him playing. Even, I don't know. I can't think of many movies where I see him play like this kind of guy.
Isn't he in Mud a blue collar guy, and in True Detective he's a blue collar guy?
Yeah, but I still feel like there's a Matthew McConaughey-ness to him that is kind of like not so much here.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, that is
it's
very
like
fair.
He's like really in this role. Like he's really in it.
I get what
it doesn't have any of the polish or the swagger that he normally has in his roles.
Flair.
This is a no frills Matthew McConaughey playing a real blue collar guy, and it made it feel much more authentic. Me. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
No, you're totally right. You're totally right. Yeah, I think I was kind of surprised at how much he felt like this character, like how kind of I don't want to say he disappeared into the role, because he's still him, but like,
right.
It definitely felt, you're right. Like it wasn't the swaggery, charismatic. I mean, he still was kind of charismatic because Matthew McConaughey kind of just is naturally. But he's like
angry, he's frustrated. He's like telling some older guy, like, stay out of mind your business, old man. Like, and Yeah, like he's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, he is. He is.
He's like kind of a fuck up and kind of an asshole. And you get it. You're like, he's got a lot of shit going on. He's kind of at his wit's end.
Yeah. He's had enough. He's frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about, because you had said this earlier, talking about like the whole notion of like the rules and that theme of breaking the rules or sticking with the rules. I don't know how I feel about that, because that feels like such an American ethos of like, well, don't follow the rules. You just got to be an individual and break those rules.
Right.
Like, I don't know. So I don't know how I feel about that, but I do find it compelling, even if I don't necessarily agree with the conclusion the film might come to. But I find it an interesting tension.
It is, and I think I wanted to give the movie credit, because I think other disaster movies might not even have other themes kind of layered in there, other than the just like pure raw survival piece of it.
Oh, I don't know. I was like, my favorite disaster movie of all time, I have two, and they're both Titanic disaster movies. One is A Night to Remember. The other is Titanic. Both about Titanic. And that has so many like class issues involved. So, but you're right. A lot of disaster movies do just kind of focus on the
average. I feel like the average one is kind of not thinking about not layering in other themes or tensions.
But they should.
They should. And I think at times it does feel a little heavy-handed, so I'll say that. Because it's like actually voiced through dialogue when they're saying things like this.
I know. It doesn't.
And I also feel similarly that I don't really think I agree with the film's like conclusion that like, yeah, you just gotta throw all the rules out the window and that's how you like make things. Because I think there are times where Kevin takes some really stupid risks that could have killed them if things didn't go their way. But it does show that there was like a lot of cards stacked against them, but a lot of things that went their way miraculously.
Yes. Yeah, there was some luck involved and some, I'm sure quick reactive thinking that helped, but yeah. Yeah. All right. Do you have any other thoughts?
I think I was just flabbergasted by the end title card. It's just like 15,000 homes destroyed, like PG&E charged with 84 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Like,
yep.
These are all, I was just like, I didn't really know anything about this particular incident. So all of that stuff was like, whoa, damn. Yeah.
One of the, I know I keep talking about it, but that documentary is incredible. But one of the things that Bring Your Own Brigade gets into is the aftermath, and it talks about the firefighters and the fire chiefs like trying to, one of the things is trying to get people to do things they need to do, like upgrade their roofs and not have certain plants in their house, like things that would increase the likelihood of fires spreading and trying to prevent that. And like they talk about the struggles they have. They talk about the struggles with funding and like funding being cut. And and then they get into the whole PG&E fiasco. And so it's like a multi-pronged, like multi-layered approach to the fires. It kind of starts with like one thing and then just expands to all these other facets. So it's awful though. It was absolutely horrific. The amount of lives lost and damage. It was staggering. That's the last thing I could think of to say. Yes. Perfect way to end that. Absolutely. Okay, well, let's do a recap. So If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You it's opening in New York and LA October 10th. It expands on October 17th in theaters. I would highly recommend it. One of the best films I've seen this year. It's incredible. It is so good. And Rose Byrne, one of the best performances I've seen this year. Excellent.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, John Candy, I Like Me is on Prime Video as of October 10th. And I think it's safe to say you'd recommend it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I will definitely have to check that out. And then The Lost Bus, it originally opened at TIFF. It opened in theaters September 19th, and it is now on Apple TV Plus. And I think it's safe to say we'd both recommend it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes,
surprised
definitely.
me in a good way. I was like,
good.
It's a disaster movie, and then I watched it and I was like, oh, this is a really good disaster movie.
I know it's true because disaster movies can be hit or miss. Ugh.
Yeah,
but no, this was a good one. Yeah, I agree. All right, well, thank you so much for listening. We want to give, while we're giving out thanks, we want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Heather, thank you so much for all your support.
Thanks, Heather.
And we want to give a huge thank you to our amazing editor, Otto Clammer. Otto, thank you.
Thanks, Otto.
And you can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. You can also go to our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can also come follow us on social media. We're at Spoiler Piece on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Letterboxd. I think that's it. But yeah, come follow us. Come say hello. Let us know what you think of these movies or any other movies and ask us questions. You can email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com. Drop us a line. Let us know which of these movies you're interested in seeing, which ones, if you've seen them, you liked, didn't like. We love hearing from you.
Yeah.
If you like the show, please consider rating and reviewing us. That helps us get the word out. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. It will take you to your preferred platform of choice. You can also just rate us directly at Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. If you like the show, you can, in addition to rating us, you can also get our merch. If you go to our website, it will take you to our TeePublic store, and you can rock all that Spoiler Piece swag. I cannot believe I just said Spoiler Piece swag, but I did.
Yeah,
I said it.
You did.
All the merch. You can also become a Patreon member. If you're already a member, thank you so much, listeners, or thank you, patrons, rather. And if you're not a member, consider joining, because for $5 a month, you get access to our weekly bonus episodes and our back catalog of hundreds of episodes, and you get to vote in monthly polls. Yep. As we talked about in the beginning of the episode, this week's bonus episode was about Nightcrawler, and we had a great time talking about that. So you get even more Spoiler Piece goodness, more things that we spoil, more things we delve into with movies. Yeah. So I think that is, that's all of it. So
you nailed it.
Yay! I win. Huzzah. So thank you so much. My name is Megan Kearns. I write and podcast for In Session Film. I am a co-host of the Slashers podcast. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Blue Sky and Twitter at OpinionSWorld, or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The Opinion S.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of Your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast. You can follow me on social media as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
All right, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.